Well, that was a tough one tonight, guys, and it mainly was tough because it was actually a fun and exciting game, but the Bulls came out of it with a loss, and really, it was due to some poor execution down in the final minute or so, which I'll get into in a little bit. And although, yes, this was a back-to-back game, and the Bulls actually played well and with energy despite playing all the way over in Florida just a little over 24 hours ago, this one does still sting a bit as the Heat were without their second-best scorer in Tyler Hero tonight, and we weren't able to take advantage of that. And the Bulls are now 13-8 as we officially hit the quarter mark of the NBA season. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, before I get into the post-game show, just wanted to take a quick second to sincerely thank you guys for getting the channel to 18,000 subscribers. I mentioned this on Twitter on Thanksgiving, but I am incredibly grateful and thankful for all of the love and support. It's what makes the Bulls fan base and the community so great, so appreciate you all. And you probably know that I have set a goal for myself to hit 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year, which, to be honest, might have been a bit too aggressive, especially given the fact that subs tend to tick down a bit when the Bulls aren't doing as well, but hopefully that will turn around and the Bulls will be able to head into December and start taking off and winning some games. Now, as for this game, as I said before, I was a little surprised to see the Bulls play with a lot of energy throughout most of the game. Usually on, the second half of a back-to-back, in which you're traveling especially, you're going to be a little tired. And this also is the 5th game in a span of 7 days in which the Bulls have been playing. So they have been playing a lot of basketball, but they were playing with pace and hustle. However, you did see some of that fatigue set in the form of turnovers, poor shooting, and committing bad fouls. The Bulls had 22 turnovers tonight, which was their season high. Yeah, you're going to have a hard time winning ball games when you're committing that many turnovers. And so many of these turnovers were just simply unforced errors. Now, obviously, the Heat are one of the better defensive teams in the league, so you expect turnovers to be committed when you're going against them. The Heat have one of the best opponent turnover rates in the league, but 22 turnovers, come on now, that's back to last season's Bulls. That's unacceptable. And then the other thing that I think is important to call out is that the Bulls shot very well from mid-range and were very efficient from that area, but they struggled greatly, not only shooting from outside, as they shot 11 for 39 from 3, but they were horrible in their attempts inside the paint. And I know a lot of people want to blame Vucevic for that, and we'll talk about him more in a minute, but even guys like DeRozan, Lavine, and Lonzo were missing attempts inside the restricted area. Yes, it is hard when you have a guy like Bam defending the paint, but you gotta start hitting those easy shots. And we've really been talking about that all season, to be honest. And then finally, how do you let a guy like Gabe Vincent go off on you and lead the Heat in scoring with 20 points? It kind of goes back to what I was saying before about Billy Donovan and his scouting reports. Like, is he doing his due diligence on some of these role players who have continuously been putting up big games against the Bulls? We saw that against the Sixers. We saw that against the Rockets as well. I don't know. Now, the one guy who stood out and had probably his best game of the season, and really the only player who showed out exceptionally well tonight, and that was Alex Caruso. Caruso, coming off the bench, put up 22 points on 6 for 8 shooting. He was drawing contact and getting to the line, was perfect from the line at 7 for 7, and was just everywhere on the court, hustling for loose balls, fighting through screens, deflecting passes. He also finished the game with 6 assists, just proving even further that this guy was one of the most underrated signings in the league this offseason. Now, DeRozan had a solid game, but he did have some bad shots in the fourth quarter that I'm sure he wishes he could take back. He finished with 28 points on 11 for 19 shooting and had 7 rebounds, but also had 4 turnovers. Lonzo Ball flirted with a triple-double tonight, but also fell short by 4 assists, but even Lonzo couldn't find his rhythm, especially from deep, shooting 3 for 11. Like DeRozan, he also had 4 turnovers and had a bad one in the final seconds when it looked like the Bulls were somehow going to come back after being down 8 with less than a minute to go. Lavine, not the best game for him, only scored 16, wasn't as aggressive in getting to the hoop. He didn't have a single free throw, which I know some people might argue, well, that's more on the refs than anything, but it's something we talked about a lot last season. That's Lavine needing to get to the foul line more, learning from DeRozan, who is an excellent player at drawing contact and getting a good portion of your points that way. Lavine is so gifted with his ability to slash to the basket. Use that more than just settling for outside fadeaway threes with a man on you. Get inside and draw contact. And again, I know I say it a lot, and I know a lot of people who watch the channel don't like it when I say this, but come on now, Zach. you have to be smarter with some of those shots that you're taking down the stretch and not just chucking up threes in transition when the team is going on a little run. This isn't last year's Bulls. This team is much more successful when the ball is moving around and everyone is getting involved. Yes, I'm aware Zach can make a good portion of those shots, and it's great when they go down, but I would argue that if a play was set up to get the best shot available and taking higher percentage shots, you would see more successful possessions from the Bulls down the stretch than ISO plays that we've been seeing. And really, that doesn't just pertain to Zach. You can also say the same thing about DeRozan. Now, on to Vucevic. Look, I know some people have been saying, I'm done with Vuce. This wasn't the Vuce that we thought we were getting when we traded for him, so on and so on. And what I will say is, yes, I agree. Vuce hasn't played anything like the Nikola Vucevic we saw when he was in Orlando. And it leads you to believe, is Vuce just not a star player on a contending team, and really, he's just benefited from being on a bad team for most of his career and been able to put up big numbers as a result? For the record, I don't think that that's the case, and I'm sure it's going to take a few more games or so for Vuce to get readjusted and recover from being out due to the health and safety protocol. And I think people forget how depleted the Bulls were in size with Vucevic being out. And so even though he has struggled on offense really all season, it's his size and rebounding ability that is key for the Chicago Bulls team. And even for a guy like Vucevic, a guy who has never really been a good defender, he's actually been playing decent defense so far this year. But I do agree that so far what we have seen from Vucevic has been concerning, because not only is he missing his shots, but he's been more timid in taking them. Vuce didn't have a single three tonight. He was 0 for 3, and he passed up on a wide open 3 late in the game that the Bulls really needed because he was 0 for 3, and it led to an empty possession. Like, that's the main thing that concerns me, is that Vuce doesn't seem to be playing with any confidence. He only had 9 shot attempts tonight, and sure, you could say, well, Lavine and DeRozan, they're going to get the bulk of attempts, but Vuce is still an elite scorer. He's got to be more aggressive, calling out for the ball, and guys also have to be finding him more, feeding him in the paint, and running the pick and roll. Now, the other frustrating thing about this game was that what we saw from Coby White, and really it's on multiple fronts. After we saw Coby have one of the best games of his season thus far, last night against the Magic anyway, and being that scorer off the bench that the Bulls need, he follows it up in a performance in which he scored 4 points, was 0 for 5 from 3, and had 5 turnovers. Like, this has been the biggest issue with Coby throughout his career, is how inconsistent he is as a player. Like, you never know what type of player you're going to get from him on a nightly basis, because for every game that he has, every good game that he has anyway, he follows it up with 2 poor performances, and you can't have that when you're relying on his offense in the second unit. The other reason it's frustrating is because you're seeing Ayo's minutes get reduced, and I'm not saying Ayo's a better player than Coby, because I think Coby talent-wise is better, and obviously he's already been in the league for a couple of seasons now, so he's more experienced, but Ayo, even as a rookie, already plays smarter basketball than Coby does. He takes higher percentage shots, understands the flow and momentum of the game, and doesn't jack up a stop and pop 3 in transition off a Bulls steal like we saw tonight from Coby. And I know some people have been saying, well, maybe we're just biased in wanting to see Ayo more because he's from Chicago, and yes, that might be true to an extent, I'll admit. But for me, I just want someone who is going to be consistent night in and night out and can play above average defense. And right now, we're seeing more of that from Ayo than we are from Coby. Now, I know I said I was going to touch on the last minute or so and that poor execution in this game, but to be honest, I'm too annoyed to rehash that play-by-play. Really, the biggest mental lapse was on that inbounds play from the Heat in which the Bulls allowed, I believe it was PJ Tucker, to go in for a wide open dunk. Not sure who missed their defensive assignment there, but the Bulls had cut the lead to 3 with less than 20 seconds to go, and it looked like they were maybe going to pull off an epic comeback, but then one mental lapse like that changes the outcome of the game. And there was also another turnover when they were running in transition. That was just a poorly executed play, but you get it. I'm not going to belabor the point. This was a game that I'm sure the Bulls could wish they could have back, but as fans also understanding this was the second game of a back-to-back, and again, 5 games in 7 nights, and at least they played with effort. The Bulls are off tomorrow, but then we'll host LaMelo Ball and the Hornets on Monday. I'll have my weekly preview video on Monday morning, so be on the lookout for that as well. Hope you guys enjoy your Saturday night, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.